This Air Force base here in Roswell, New Mexico was the center of a controversy back in 1947 that over 40 years later still remains unsolved. Remnants of a mysterious craft were found on a remote ranch and allegedly stored here in Hangar 84. To this day, there are many who believe it was a UFO.
That same morning, Colonel William Blanchard, the commanding officer, made a crucial decision. He went public with the story of the discovery made by Mac Brazel. The press release read in part,
"The many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday, when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Squadron was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of a local rancher."
The press release was immediately picked up by newspapers across the country. The story created a furor. That same day, it was reported that an engineer for the Soil Conservation Service made another remarkable discovery. Barney Barnett of Socorro, New Mexico, died in 1969, but he may have been the person who discovered what was perhaps the first positive proof that there was other life in our universe.
He told me that he come out of this spaceship. It was during the daytime. It was an oval shape, similar to what had been identified, in different sightings and so on. When the Army showed up, they immediately escorted these people from the scene. And then at that time, they gave them a warning not to relate any information to anybody. From that time on, Barney never mentioned it to anybody until the time that he told me about the thing.
On July 8, 1947, newspapers across America published accounts that a UFO had supposedly crashed in New Mexico. At almost the same moment, the Army received the news of a second crash site, where alien bodies may have been found. Brigadier General Roger Ramey was the ranking commander of the 8th Army Air Force at Fort Worth. Within hours, Ramey's office issued a new press release stating that the material recovered in New Mexico was not a UFO, but in reality, the wreckage of a U.S. Army weather balloon.
Dad? What do you make of this story?
You mean Roswell?
Yes, it sounds intriguing.
You can say that again. It is quite unbelievable.
I am not sure what to make of it.
It is quite extraordinary that the Army at the time would ever put out a press release indicating that they were in possession of a flying saucer.
Dad, you are retired now, but you had a long career as an aerospace engineer. Actually, I don't even know what you worked on while you were employed. What's that name you used to call it?
The dark side.
Exactly, the dark side.
I worked on various black projects out there at Hughes Aircraft out in El Segundo, California, but I can assure you, I never worked on flying saucers.
So Dad, if Roswell really happened, if it was a real event as presented on that program, do you think the government would keep it a secret?
I have to say, most definitely yes.
Really? But Dad, this would be the greatest discovery of humankind. How could they do that?
Son, let me explain something to you. There are two main reasons the United States will keep a secret, and more importantly, pay to keep something secret, even if it was the biggest discovery of humankind.
So why do they classify information?
Number one, technology and capability. For example, Gary Powers was shot down while flying a U-2 spy plane over Russia. The particulars detail of the aircraft design were highly classified precisely to prevent the Russians from shooting it down.
Okay, go on.
Naturally, when its replacement was developed, the A-12, by the way, operated by the CIA, 4 times faster than the U-2, it received a top secret classification and nobody knew about it. No one. So imagine if an extraterrestrial spacecraft crashed on Earth and came into the possession of the U.S. Army, hell, it would be classified higher than the hydrogen bomb. Listen, If ETs made it to the solar system, their technology would have to be thousands of years ahead of ours.
Wow. So what is the second reason for classification?
You would also classify something that could be geopolitically destabilizing, embarrassing, shocking, or that could have the possibility of disrupting society, Wall Street, you understand? So knowledge of an extraterrestrial civilization engaging this planet could be very destabilizing. In my opinion, if Roswell was what is depicted on TV, it would naturally receive a very high, if not the highest form of classification in U.S. history. It would most definitely be classified above top secret, above nuclear bomb technology.
Wow, Dad. I must admit, it is sobering to listen to you putting it like that. So, what is your verdict? Roswell, fact or fiction?
Sincerely, I don't know enough about this subject to tell you. I am impressed that so many military men at Roswell that were in a position to know believe that what crashed there in 1947 was out of this world. Like intelligence officer Jesse Marcel, that base was home to our first nuclear bomb squadron, the 50940. These were not idiots or crooks.
So, where is the flaw in this story? Beside it being an incredible story, what gives you pause?
The thing is, if we recovered a flying saucer and it was extraterrestrial, gosh, I would have so many questions. Did the ETs come back to retrieve it? Did we make formal contact? Where is the result of the back engineering effort? Where do we take it? Who is running this effort? 42 years and we haven't made any breakthroughs? Why do we still have a space shuttle? Gosh, so many questions.
You are right, Dad. We should have something to show for it, shouldn't we?
I would think so. In fact, I would hope so. Maybe they are still working on it.
What if they have, but it's still classified?
Well, that is a real possibility. See, the problem is, how do you declassify something that represents such a huge leap in technology? Imagine, whatever the power source of a flying saucer could maybe destroy our oil economy.
I guess you could create a story where some scientist makes a breakthrough and then introduce it to the public.
Maybe there are implications of this technology that perhaps the people that control it don't want it to get out. Possibly there is a long, slow declassification program that will last years.
Fascinating, Dad.
It is curious that, for example, the fastest aircraft in U.S. history is the SR-71, a late 50s design. It's hard to believe that we have not outdone ourselves. Imagine reaching the next century and that was still our fastest aircraft. You would eventually have to get suspicious.
So how much money does the U.S. government spend every year in classified projects?
I know it's in the billions. You know what? That would be something worthwhile looking into.
Definitely.
I just had a thought. Are you familiar with Project Paperclip?
No, what is that?
Towards the end of the World War II, the United States initiated a covert operations to steal Nazi scientists and bring them to the States with the promise of getting immunity from prosecution. So imagine, in 1947, the U.S. Army gets a hold of a craft from out of this world, and at the same time, we have this reservoir of brilliant minds ready to tackle the problem, many of whom have just finished working on the A-bomb.
What you say, it's incredible.
So, if I would have been running this show, I would have taken these guys right from the Manhattan Project to the ET spacecraft back engineering project. See what I mean?
Talk about being at the right place at the right time.
Most of these scientists were in the U.S. by 1947. One of the things I never understood was why did Russia get to space before the U.S. with Sputnik? The U.S. was investing in space technology heavily after the war, so the U.S. had all this talent, which was superior to what the Russians had, and we ended up getting beaten to put a satellite in space?
So you are saying that perhaps they were busy back engineering their Roswell craft. Fascinating.
Perhaps. Who knows? Let's not get carried away. This is all wild speculation.
If any of this is true, this would be the United States' greatest secret, greatest cover-up. In fact, the greatest cover-up in world history.
Well, I'm gonna make this my new research project. I'm gonna buy books, visit the library, maybe talk to some old friends. Maybe some of the UFO sightings are ET spacecraft, but maybe some are actually ours. What if we have actually built our own flying saucers?
Seriously then? So is this going to become your new hobby?
Son, I just retired. Your mom passed away. I am a cancer survivor. I got nothing to do. Yes, I'm going to try to learn as much as I can. Who knows? I may actually learn something. What could be more important than this?
I'm going to introduce a man who says, there are more things between heaven and hell than any of us have accepted. And I have the witnesses and the documents to prove it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Stephen Gould.
Thank you very much, John. Members of the press, the American public, and people of the world. We are here today to disclose the truth about a subject that has been ridiculed and questioned, denied for at least 50 years. The men and women who are on this stage and the some 350 additional military intelligence witnesses to the so-called UFO matter and extraterrestrial intelligence can prove and will prove that we are not alone. In 1993, a group of military advisors to this project and I met out in the countryside in Virginia, and we decided that it was time for civilians, military, intelligence, and other people to come together to disclose the truth about the subject which is called UFOs. Since that time, I have personally briefed a sitting director of Central Intelligence, James Woolsey, President Clinton's first CIA director. I have personally briefed the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the head of Intelligence Joint Staff, members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, many members of Congress, members of the European leadership, the Japanese cabinet, and others. And what I have found is that none of them are surprised that this is true, but they are uniformly horrified that they have not had access to these projects. We can establish through these witnesses whom we have identified, which now number over 400, and these are people who have been inside the CIA, NSA, NRO, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Army, all divisions of the intelligence and military community, as well as corporate witnesses, contractors to the government. And these are folks who have been involved in so-called black budget or covert unacknowledged projects. These unacknowledged special access projects are taking in at least $40 to $80 billion per year. and they are sitting on technologies that can change the world forever. The reason we are coming forward now is that we are asking for the U.S. Congress and for President Bush to move towards an official inquiry and disclosure on this subject. It has the most profound implications for the human future, for the U.S. national security, and for world peace. Specifically, technologies connected to UFO and extraterrestrial vehicles, if declassified and used for peaceful energy generation and propulsion, would solve the looming energy crisis definitively, would end global warming, would correct the environmental challenges that the Earth is facing. It is also critical that we begin to debate as a society the propriety of placing weapons in space. If indeed, as we can prove, it is true that we are not alone and that space is territory which we are sharing with other civilizations, it could be a very imprudent, destabilizing thing to place weapons in space. This is not being debated because it is off the national and international radar screens. It needs to be placed on it, and we are here today to do it. We can establish through this testimony that these objects of extraterrestrial origin have been tracked on radar going thousands of miles per hour, stopping and making right-hand turns, that they use anti-gravity propulsion systems, which we have already figured out how they work in classified projects in the United States, Great Britain, and elsewhere. That these objects have landed on terra firma, at times have been disabled, and have been retrieved specifically by teams within the United States, that extraterrestrial life forms have been retrieved, and their vehicles have been taken and studied for at least 50 years.
So, has disclosure begun?
I am skeptical, but we can only hope. Frankly, if it's the beginning, this will be a very long, drawn-out process. I will probably be dead before it is complete. I am hopeful that you will get to see it, son.
Don't say that, Dad. We will both get to see it.
So this is something I feel like, if I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
If I was the president...
It was unlikely that I was going to be president.
The moment I was inaugurated, my hand would just, it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I'd go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. That's the first thing that you would do.
The
aliens won't let it happen. You reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here, every twitch, everything, and say, and of course, so did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Good morning. My name is Mark McCandlish, and for the last 21 years, I have worked as a conceptual artist for a variety of defense contractors. I've been involved in conceptual artwork or the production thereof for Rockwell on the X-30 program, and also on the high-step program, that's spelled HYSTP, means Hypersonic Testbed Program. In 1988, in November, a college buddy of mine, an associate by the name of Brad Sorensen, informed me that he had personally witnessed 3 flying saucers at a very large hangar at Norton Air Force Base during the course of an air show that was held on Saturday, November 12, 1988. I subsequently called my congressman from that district. I called his office. This was Congressman George E. Brown Jr., who at the time was the chairman of the Congressional Committee on Space Science and Advanced Technology. I naturally assumed that since this presentation that Brad talked about was for top military brass and certain congressional individuals, that his office must have coordinated this with the local Air Force Office of Public Affairs. A male staff member in Congressman Brown's office not only confirmed the exhibit, but the fact that there were 3 discs at that exhibit. These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the Fluxliner because they used high voltage electricity.